Illegal alien crime, President Trump has made a major issue of that. And in Rockville, Maryland, a sanctuary place, a horrendous crime occurred last week, authorities say. 18-year-old Henry Sanchez and 17-year-old Jose Montano, a minor who they have not facially identified yet, dragged a 14-year-old girl into a high school bathroom, Rockville High School, and raped her. Sanchez from Guatemala under a deportation order before that. Montano from El Salvador is suspected of being in the country illegally as well. There are many questions here. Here's one of them.
You had an 18-year-old in your schools enrolled as a freshman. You don't see that as a problem?
We have a lot of 18-year-olds in our schools, and it's not
an 18-year-old that would senior out at 24 years old?
Our student actually was in a METS program for English learners, and that's a program we have across the system. And so it's not a matter of what grade they're in, but the student was in a program for English learners.
Now, the METS program is multidisciplinary education, training, and support. So now to explain further, co-host of 5, Dana Perino. Tell me about Montgomery County and the Rockville area where this took place. This is a heavily sanctuary county city situation, right?
Right, so like the city doesn't say that we're a sanctuary city, but they sort of operate that way in this sense, and that if you are picked up on part of a routine traffic stop or part of an investigation, the police officers do not ask you what your legal status is. But they do say that the county and the city say that they do cooperate with federal officials like ICE on a detaining,
so if they ask for a detainer,
they do cooperate.
But listen, you enroll in school. Okay, and there's one guy from Guatemala, and he's in less than a year. They're not asking if you're an illegal alien.
They are not, and you know why? Because the Supreme Court in 1982 said you cannot.
Is that right?
Yes.
So there is a law that you cannot ask students about their citizenship?
Right. And now the circumstances were slightly different. It wasn't about, we weren't talking about crime at the time. This was a case that started in Texas. It was really about resources and how much money would have to be spent. So it's called Plyler versus Doe, and basically what the court said is that the school cannot ask the immigration status of a young person that's coming and asking to go to school.
And that's the law of the land now.
And the reason was they said there was more harm in not educating them than in the resources.
Well, there's always a rationale. I mean, these people who don't want to cooperate with ICE, it's always about social empowerment, social justice. But the reporter, the local reporter who asked the principal or whoever he was, hey, you're putting in an 18-year-old with a 14-year-old, okay? An 18-year-old from Guatemala, all right, with a 14-year-old girl, and they allegedly drag her into the bathroom and rape her. I mean, and this is okay with you? I mean, these are adults. That guy's an adult, and he's sitting in a freshman classroom, and you know he's probably here illegally, which he is. And the authority, you can't tell me the school authorities didn't know he was here illegally. They knew. And this is the environment that you create?
But what the school would say is that they were not allowed to ask his immigration status, but they do know that he was picked up by ICE about 7 months ago and then released.
Yeah.
When he was in Texas. So there's lots of questions here, especially I wonder, like, where are his parents? Or if he's 18, like, how long can he be in that school? I don't think he has parents.
I think it's one of those that he shows up at the border. All right, I'm a minor or whatever. They let him in. Bang. This was under the Obama administration, by the way. All right. As soon as he crosses, they give him a bus ticket to wherever he wants to go. He wants to go to Maryland. He's got an uncle or whatever, and there he is. And now we have this 14-year-old.
Her story is what happened to her is so gut-wrenching.
It's horrible, and
there is rape that happens against young people all across America. It's not just from illegal immigrants. This story in particular, though, when you read the details of it,
it's horrifying. And we're not demonizing illegal aliens or migrants or anybody. We are saying, I am saying, the system's out of control. It is out of control. We don't know who's here. We don't know where they are. We don't know who they are. And the federal government has got to get
well. And the governor of Maryland, Governor Hogan, has told the state legislature that do not send me a sanctuary bill because
he's going to veto it.
He would veto it.
Yeah, Hogan's a good guy.
I do think that is actually. I think that the public policy on this is changing partly because of the publicity,
and partly because of Trump.
Yes, absolutely.
He made a big issue out of this. Dana Perino, everyone.
Just days ago, a hideous crime was allegedly committed in the Washington, D.C. suburb of Rockville, Maryland. A 14-year-old girl, a 9th grader at Rockville High School, reportedly was dragged into a bathroom and violently raped. Her two alleged assailants, Jose Montano and Henry Sanchez Millian, both arrived in this country just a few months ago. Sanchez is 18 years old and in this country illegally. But instead of being deported back to his country of origin, he was instead placed in the 9th grade and educated at taxpayer expense. This is insanity, of course. It's a sign of a sick civilization at war with itself. A strong country enforces its laws and protects its citizens. That's job one. In the U.S., too often we ignore our own laws and instead allow ruin to be visited on our own people. Well, some people in Rockville are fed up with all this. There was a meeting today at Rockville High School with protests outside by angry residents. We had a reporter there, and we'll tell you more about what happened in just a minute. Apparently, their outrage does not extend to Rockville's leaders, though. The town won't call itself a sanctuary city, but it is in effect one. It follows sanctuary policies, and top officials there don't want to think about the connection illegal immigration might have to this crime or others like it. Montgomery County School Superintendent Jack Smith, for instance, said this.
We're not going to paint all students who speak another language, all students of a skin color, all students of a religion with a broad brush because of a really terrible incident. So I'm saying no tonight. We're going to take care of our students. We're going to take care of this student who experienced this trauma. But what we are not going to accept is people who say that 25,000 of our students shouldn't get to go to school because they speak another language.
In other words, diversity is our strength. Move along. You're racist. Shut up. Thanks, Jack. Well, thankfully, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan does not suffer from the same mental block. Here's what he said.
Where my biggest concern lies is with the Montgomery County school system and their lack of cooperation and the lack of information they've been providing. Not only have they refused to provide any information to us, but they've refused to provide it to the State Board of Education, who specifically requested more information.
Well, this came up at the White House briefing today, and Press Secretary Sean Spicer had this to say.
I think part of the reason that the president has made illegal immigration and crackdown such a big deal is because of tragedies like this.
Zeke Cohen is a Democrat on the city council of the city of Baltimore, a place that in effect has sanctuary city policies, and he joins us now. Zeke, thanks for coming on. So just yesterday, as it happens, you sponsored a resolution which passed on the Baltimore City Council, which demanded that federal immigration authorities stop enforcing federal immigration law in the city of Baltimore. Why, given what just happened, is that a wise idea? If these guys had been picked up in suburban Washington and Rockville, this never would have happened. So why would you encourage that policy in your city?
So Tucker, I am incredibly proud to serve the citizens of Baltimore. Baltimore is a welcoming city, and the reason I introduced this resolution was not to tell ICE not to operate, but to only target violent criminals, such as the young people who allegedly perpetrated this crime. There is no place in our country for this sort of sexual violence. I condemn it full-heartedly, but the vast majority of immigrants in our community are peaceful, they pay taxes, and they contribute.
Okay, but we only knew that they were violent criminals after they had raped a 9th grader. The fact is that at least one of them, possibly both, but at least one was in violation of the law already, and because a lot of your state refuses to enforce federal immigration law, he was able to commit that rape. Wouldn't it have been better to get him out of that school and out of this country before he raped this girl?
So if he had committed a crime, it absolutely would have been better. But Tucker, let me say this. What concerns me, in addition to this type of crime, is also what I've seen ICE do in Southeast Baltimore, where I represent, where just recently a father was arrested after dropping off his son at school. He has no criminal history. His only history is violating his status and returning to this country. He escaped violence in Honduras, just the same way that my great-grandmother escaped violence and persecution in Austria, and we welcome him here. Immigrants built the fabric of this country, and Baltimore is a place that will continue to welcome them.
You know, it's pretty unbelievable that you would compare ICE, federal immigration authorities, to the Nazis, which you just in effect did, and you did explicitly yesterday, when they're enforcing laws that would have prevented this heinous crime. Would you say that to the parents of the girl who was raped? These are Nazis, these Americans who are enforcing immigration laws? Why would you say something like that?
So I extend my full sympathy to these parents. What they've been through is horrific, and to trot their crime out publicly is really kind of shameful, Tucker. And I think that the politics you're engaging in is this sort of Willie Horton style race baiting, dog whistle where, you know, we don't blame entire groups of people for the heinous acts of a few. For example, we're not after Dylan Roof murdered 9 people in a church in South Carolina. We don't say that all white people are terrorists.
Slow down. I'm not saying that all Hispanics are terrorists. I'm not saying anything like that. You're the one who explicitly compared federal immigration authorities to Nazis. Who's using the dog whistle here? Who's making demagogic statements? They're Nazis? You're calling fellow American citizens Nazis for enforcing federal law passed by Congress? Are you really an office holder? Why would you say something like that?
So what I'm doing, Tucker, is comparing the plight of my great-grandmother, who came here from Austria to escape Hitler's gas chambers, to the same fate as my Honduran neighbors, who've come here escaping violence from their country and just want to build a better life. We also had an ICE raid recently.
That's not what you're saying. In fact, let me read you a quote. This is from yesterday from the city paper in Baltimore. It said, Cohen likened the recent raids to what Nazi Germany did before the Holocaust. So you're, again, for the 5th time, you're accusing Americans, your fellow American citizens who are law enforcement officials, of behaving like Nazis. Don't you think that's a little over the top, speaking, again, of dog whistles?
Tucker, again, what I'm saying is that when the Statue of Liberty proclaims, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free, that she is calling both to my great-grandmother as well as to my Honduran neighbors. I'm not comparing ICE to Nazis. What I'm doing is to say these are people who've been persecuted back in their home country, and if they want to come here and build a better life in Baltimore, we welcome them.
Okay. But you are, first of all, comparing them to Nazis. But the truth is, Baltimore has a lot of problems, It's got one of the highest crime rates in the United States. Some of those crimes are committed by people who are here illegally, illegal aliens, as you know. 3 years ago, one of them raped a 9-year-old girl right after you became a sanctuary city. Again, as you know, you've had something like 10 murders in the last week, and you're spending your time telling law enforcement not to enforce the law. How does that help the immigrants you claim to care for?
So, Tucker, here's the real story about Baltimore, is that we are a city rebuilding, and the resilience in my city is incredible. And just because people like you go on TV and bash us doesn't mean that Baltimore has to take it. I'm proud to represent my district.
I'm not bashing you. I'm reciting your crime statistics. Do you know what they are? Really? Do you have any sense of what the murder rate is? What's the murder rate in your city? Do you know?
So last year, we had over 300 homicides. Each one is tragic. I completely agree with you. I was a teacher in West Baltimore before I became a city council person. And I will say that our school system is struggling. Our law enforcement is struggling. But it is not the fault of immigrants. And in fact, Tucker, what we've faced for a very long time is depopulation. And the immigrant community, particularly the Central American community, which you continuously bash on your show, has actually come here and rebuilt.
I'm not continuously bashing the Central American community. By the way, that's completely false. My only concern is for the people who are already here. Does it make a school better when people move in who don't speak English? Is it good for the kids who are already in the school, do you think? Does it improve the education? Is it fair to the taxpayers? Have you thought about that?
I think the greatest asset in our city is our diversity. And I was joined by an amazing group of immigrant youth yesterday in passing this resolution.
Hold on, slow down. That doesn't mean anything. I asked you a sincere question. Does it improve a school when a lot of people move in who don't speak English? Does the school get better?
Absolutely. So if you're talking about a city that used to be 1 million people and is now down to 630,000, having folks come here and participate and pay taxes, sending their kids to our school is a blessing, and we welcome those children. And like I was saying, we had a great group come to City Hall yesterday to advocate for their community, to speak out against intolerance, and to help us pass this resolution. And that's why I'm so proud to represent my city on the city council.
It's so sad. I mean, maybe your city's depopulating because you had 316 murders last year because you don't take it seriously and you spend your time with frivolous nonsense like this, which doesn't make the city better. It's just sad. It's depressing to watch a formerly great city like that languish under leadership like yours. I'm sorry.
Tucker, it's only frivolous when it's not your family.
This is absurd. This is, you know what? It's sad, and you're not providing a serious answer, unfortunately.
So remember from the very first day that Donald Trump announced he was running for president, combating violent crime carried out by illegal immigrants has been one of his top concerns. You may remember when he said this way back in 2015. Take a look.
The U.S. has become a dumping ground for everybody else's problems. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. It's coming from more than Mexico. It's coming from all over South and Latin America, and it's coming probably from the Middle East.
All right, following those candid remarks, then candidate Donald Trump, remember, he was mocked, he was ridiculed, he was blasted, he was demeaned by the alt-left propaganda, destroy Trump press. Now, here's a small sampling of some of what took place when he said that.
When you say that immigrants from Mexico are criminals and rapists, isn't that spreading hate? The things that he considers just blunt talk, it is clearly offensive.
I'm outraged, Michaela. I can't understand how is it possible that a presidential candidate for the who wants to be president of the United States can speak and use hate language.
The natural reaction is to think he's a clown, let's ignore him. Say something derogatory to a Latino and they accept it. That is the disrespect that the Latino community felt. That's what bubbled up in social media.
Now, sadly, despite this outrage from the biased press, well, violent crimes that are carried out by illegal immigrants continue to take place, including just last week when, according to reports, 2 immigrants from Central America, 18-year-old illegal immigrant Henry Sanchez Milian, pictured right there, and 17-year-old Jose Montano, they allegedly brutally raped a 14-year-old girl in a bathroom stall. Now, this was at a high school in Maryland. Now, despite their age, the pair of alleged rapists were attending high school as 9th graders. They're here illegally, at least one of them. So this terrible crime is just the latest in a long list of Americans who are victims because of illegal immigration. Now, during the presidential election, the murder of Kate Steinle became, well, national news. Why? Because in 2015, she was murdered in the sanctuary city of San Francisco by an illegal immigrant who had been deported 5 times. We're not protecting the American people. Now, of course, these high-profile incidences, well, it's only the tip of the iceberg. Last year, right here on this program, we held a town hall with then-candidate Trump, and we had mothers whose children were killed at the hands of illegal immigrants. Just for a second, imagine if this were, God forbid, your child.
My son was an integral part of a community, and his life was cut short by a repeat criminal.
As the illegal drove by, he shot into the passenger side. My son was sitting at a red light, waiting for it to turn green. He was less than a mile from his home.
Now, for years, right here on this program, we have been raising real concerns about illegal immigration. We've been down to the border numerous times. Back in 2014, remember, I was with Governor Rick Perry down in Texas, and we sat in on a border security briefing. Listen to these crime statistics.
Criminal aliens have been responsible for about 642,000 criminal offenses.
Governor, I've been down to the border 8 times now. 8 times, and I'm learning things here today that I never knew of, and I'd like to consider myself pretty informed on this issue. 642,000 crimes in 7 years have an orchestrated that we have brave men and women that are literally using military tactics to fight what they consider to be cartels.
642,000 crimes committed against Texans alone. Then between 2011 and February 2017, in the state of Texas, well, illegal immigrants were responsible for 1,162 homicide charges, 68,151 assault charges, and 6,098 sexual assault charges. Now, of course, Texas, that's not the only state impacted by criminal illegal immigrants. In 2015, 36.6% of all federal sentences were given to illegal aliens, including convictions for drug trafficking, kidnapping, and yes, murder. Now, what I'm about to tell you, you're not going to hear this in the mainstream media. Between 2013 and 2015, despite the dangers we just showed you, the Obama administration released 86,288 criminal illegal immigrants right back into the general U.S. population. Now, thankfully, the era of Obama is over. We have a new president, and he has a new attitude. Watch this.
I met with many American families whose loved ones, sons and daughters, husbands and wives, were viciously killed by illegal immigrants. These American victims and their families were ignored by the media. The media doesn't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. They were ignored by the consultants. They were ignored by Washington. But these Americans were not ignored by me. They were not ignored by you. You showed that on November 8th. They were not ignored by you, and they will never be ignored by any of us.
So President Trump is right, was right. We can never forget those whose lives were destroyed by illegal immigrants. Here now with reaction, Laura Wilkerson. Look at her case. Her son Joshua, brutally beaten and killed by an illegal immigrant in 2010. Also with us, Sabine Durden. Her son Dominic, also killed by a drunk driver in 2012. The driver, an illegal immigrant. Thank you both for joining us again. I appreciate it. You know, we've got a lot of news today. I've known you now for some time, and we're going to talk about Neil Gorsuch. We're going to talk about the health care bill, and we're going to talk about all the other news of the day, James Comey. But I read this story, and I thought of you. I thought of the town hall that I did. I thought of of other parents in your situation, and this will get no media play. But people will make fun of the president or then candidate Donald Trump. What do you have to say to those people that have not lived through what you lived through?
It disgusts me. I'm so disgusted by what I hear about this rape. This poor child of 14 years old is forever scarred. She will be forever live her life here on a different plane. I equate it to like having a stroke and a heart attack at the same time. She's going to have night terrors. She's going to wake up screaming in the middle of the night. She's going to be right back in that cubicle where they raped her. Any time of day or night, it's going to live in her brain for the next couple of years. And then if it does settle down a little bit.
And think back when Donald Trump came down that escalator announcing he's going to run for president, and he made those initial comments, some are rapists, some are murderers, and the brutal, vicious, vile, that's racist, that's wrong, that's inappropriate. He wasn't wrong. It's true. There are a lot of good people that cross the border illegally. They just want a better life. I get it. But there are a lot of people that don't belong here.
He was not wrong. He was right, exactly right about what he said. And I agree with him still today. And you can see this is another case of it. But I want to tell you that girl is going to do something for the rest of her life. She will never be the same. And I'm sure the two kids that came over were undocumented children by themselves. You cannot mix the cultures and some of the things together and have it mesh. It's not working. They need to be out. They're criminal for being here in this country in the first place, and they need to be gone.
I see this, and I'm thinking, nobody is going to talk about it in the mainstream media. You know, I don't know what the coverage was at the time. Go ahead.
And like Laura said, this young lady is changed forever. Her family, her friends, she will never be the same. She will never grow up as she would have without this happening. And what does it take for people on the left or on the right? Does it take your child in an urn, like my son, my only child? Does it take that for somebody to wake up and get behind our president to stop this insanity with the illegals crossing our borders, harming our citizens? When are we going to come first? You're
never going to be the same either, are you?
Trump. No, never. I won't ever be a grandmother or a mother-in-law. My life's completely changed. I moved because I couldn't handle California anymore.
Yeah, it's so sad. We lost Laura. Thank you, Sabine. Thank you. You're in our prayers. The media needs to start telling the truth instead of putting on one commentator after another that says these outrageous things. Also here with reaction, author of the best-selling book, Cop Under Fire, Moving Beyond Hashtags of Race, Crime, and Politics for a Better America, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark. Sheriff, I got to imagine as part of your daily job, you have to deal with people that suffer like these parents, and probably there have been those moments you have to tell them, oh, sorry, your son and daughter is dead. Sorry, they're not alive. What happened? They got killed. And then in the case if it's an illegal immigrant, then you say, why does our government not protect the American people?
Sean, it rips my heart out to listen to those angel moms, and may God comfort them in their time of grief. Look, this stuff was avoidable. That's stuff that angers me. We're talking about some failed policies, these sanctuary cities. We're not asking much. When I say we, I'm talking about ICE officials. We're talking about this anti-detainer policy that many of these sanctuary cities adhere to, where they will not hang on to individuals until ICE can get the paperwork together and the case together to schedule them for deportation. That's not asking a lot, just to hang on to them. These things are avoidable. I heard about that rape case, that young 14-year-old girl, these subhuman creeps. And the thing that really angered me is one of those guys was out awaiting a deportation hearing. That's why I said these anti-detainer policies. We don't need to change the law. We're not asking local officials, as ICE anyway, is not asking local officials to enforce immigration. They're just asking them to honor a detainer, a lawful piece of paper that says, hold on to this individual until we can get the deportation schedule. These things are killing communities. They're killing cities. It is obviously, it's become a haven for criminal activity, these sanctuary cities. This is going to come to an end. I thank God every day since the November election that Donald Trump is the president of the United States. We are going to get our arms around this thing. I've made it clear I'm going to help him. I've made the application to participate in the 287G program. But even before that, up to this time, through the Obama years, when he suspended the 287G, I have still been working with ICE. And when ICE has given me a detainer for the last 8 years under Obama, I have honored that detainer. These guys are career criminals. You put them back out. You mentioned Kate Steinle, only to go out and re-victimize other people. I don't know how any law enforcement official or public official, a mayor or governor, can sit back with a straight face and say our communities are stronger because of illegal immigration. These two moms that you just talked to, their state failed them, their local community failed them. But we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that not too many more people have to go through what they're suffering right now.
All right, Sheriff, good to hear your insight on this. Really appreciate it. And been putting aside the trillions of dollars on healthcare costs, criminal justice system, the educational system. Just imagine for 1 second if that's your son or daughter, killed or raped. Mainstream media going to ignore this?